Thursday, 1 February, Year of our Lord 2024. Thank you so much for joining us for the second hour. Appreciate it. The early evening edition of the War Room. I want to bring in Mark Paoletta first. Mark was over. You have the White House Counsel, and then you have the Vice President's White House Counsel. He was there at the beginning. He was also part of the committee, the very select 5-man committee that helped work through the Supreme Court justices. People think so highly of Mark. Now over at CRA, one of the great fighters were Russ Vought, Jeff Clark, that team over there. Mark, I had you on here because it's kicking off Black History Month, and one of the most, I think, revered African Americans in the country is Justice Thomas. But I want to get up to speed on everything I see you fighting for, and it's very disturbing. We were in Vegas for this pre-RNC meeting, restoring national confidence. I had people come in from the audience. We interviewed them. Fascinating guy who used to work for Newt Gingrich years ago. He's dedicated his life to say, hey, you guys are missing it because if Biden wins, they're immediately going to pack the court. That's going to be his number one thing. And this guy's running a group to do it. And it's just fascinating. But I see every day that you're fighting the fight. They're trying to get Justice Thomas off. They're trying to get him to recuse himself on every topic out there. They're smearing the justice, intimidation. A lot of people are saying, like this Texas situation, is Amy Coney Barrett even as great as she is? Was she intimidated now by this mob? Is Roberts intimidated by this mob? Just, this better than anybody. Give us a snapshot on where we are, and then what this audience can do to assist.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me on. You're right. They are going to try and pack the court, right? That is their goal, to win the presidency, win both houses, and then pack the court, right? In the meantime, they want to shrink the court. Right, because we have this originalist majority on the Supreme Court for the first time ever. Okay, and certainly in modern times, going back many decades, and the left is furious. So what they're trying to do is they go after these justices, the originalists, with these made-up ethics charges or recusals, and they're all false. I can tell you, I've studied this a lot. I've written on it a lot. You can have your viewers go to markpaoletta.com or follow me on X at markpaoletta. And I lay it all out that there are no issues for why any of these justices need to recuse from these cases. But that's what they want. They want to take off Justice Thomas. They want to take off Justice Gorsuch the other day. They were going after him on some lunatic allegation about him having to step away from the Chevron case, the case that was looking at Chevron on deference. And it's so that they have their preferred justice.
Hang on. Folks should understand that that's the deconstruction of the administrative state. That is the Mac Daddy of what we've been going. We got two elements, CRA. We're going to take it apart brick by brick, but you must have the legal side come in here. That's why Justice Gorsuch and Kavanaugh are so important, as you remember, Mark. But they're obviously, we call it the Thomas Court. So I just want to go back to something that's very important. I said it already in the chat. Their focus, and folks remember this would have happened probably if Hillary Clinton won. We avoided that with Trump's great come from behind victory in 2016. Yeah. What Paoletta is saying is that strategically, if Biden is to win again and they take the House and hold the Senate, they will immediately go to take out the third branch of government, which will be the judiciary, by packing the Supreme Court. In the interim, what they intend to do is to shrink the court, and they're going to shrink the court either through intimidation or these phony recusals. That's between now and Election Day, is to shrink the court down from the conservative majority, correct? And if they win, then to expand the court, many more justices, just to dilute the court. Is that the correct way to look at it?
That's exactly right. It's the bullying, but it's really the recusals that they need to recuse. They can't sit on this case because whatever, something they come up with. And so their spouse has expressed an opinion on a case or on an issue or something like that. None of those things constitute a reason to recuse. And I lay out in many instances over the years that, the left never had any problems with, spouses working in an area and the justice not recusing or whatever the allegation is. So that's the attack right now, is to attack those originalist justices, intimidate them, try and get them to recuse. My sense is, and looking at this, there's no reason to recuse that. But the left, you need to understand, and your viewers need to understand, Steve, it is just a seismic change in America that we have an originalist court. It's the only thing protecting our republic right now. And it hasn't been that way. It's important to understand, even though there were Republican presidents in the past, right? Reagan, Bush
No.
43, we've never had an originalist court, a conservative court, a constitutional court that's faithful to the Constitution. It was always left of center. You had Blackmun, you had O'Connor, you had Justice Stevens, you had Brennan. All of these left-wing justices, right, were appointed by Republican presidents. David Souter, my God.
Well, hold
right?
on. Souter, I mean, you had one disaster. Listen, this is why it was, I'm going to give some inside baseball, because it was Pence, Reince, myself, and it was really Don McGahn and Mark. And what Don and McGahn and Mark came up with is say, hey, look, it can't be biography anymore, right? It can't be any kind of, a profile. It can't be a state court judge. And it has to be by written opinion. What drives us is intellect, discernment, judgment, and that's seen in the written opinion. And I think that's why you have the quality people of Kavanaugh and particularly Justice Gorsuch, who to me is like Alito, Scalia level. But you're right. This is a precious thing we have, and that's why the left's gone nuts. Remember, they've held the Supreme Court up as absolutely the most important institution in the nation until originalists were put on there. Now they're like demons attacking it, including physically attacking. And this is why. The other thing, Mark, is you look at the types of cases, not just the Chevron deference by the administrative state. If you look at the top, you had Dobbs, but look at this invasion of the southern border. I mean, the types of cases that are coming to the Supreme Court now are at such a scale. Each one could have a major impact on the direction of the republic. I shouldn't say each one, but many each session. And now more than ever, the court's going to be under the spotlight.
That's right. I mean, in the past few years, right, you've had Dobbs, you've had the affirmative action case, you've had religious liberties cases. All of those cases, the Second Amendment cases, is strengthening the Second Amendment, faithful to the Constitution. So all of these cases, including the case next week, right, with the 14th Amendment and the outrageous attempt to try and keep President Trump off the ballot in Colorado and Maine and other states. Those are cases, again, where they're going to try and say Justice Thomas needs to recuse or Justice X needs to recuse. It's warfare on the court. As you just said, Steve, what this triggered, right? And again, the stakes are so high here. What the left has done is unleashed war on the Supreme Court. And you saw that with Senator Schumer. This goes right to the top of the Democrat Party, standing outside on the steps of the Supreme Court during an abortion oral argument to threaten physically Justices Kavanaugh and Gorsuch to vote the right way, or they won't know what hit you. He said, we will unleash the whirlwind. You won't know what hit you. And what happens after that? An assassination attempt on Justice Kavanaugh and his family. So that's what the left has done. That's what's at stake here. It's important for people to support the Supreme Court, to stand up, to push back against the left and members of Congress who have directly threatened the Supreme Court.
I remember I was in, I think, Rome. It was during the voting, getting ready for the European parliamentary election when Justice Kavanaugh was approved. I'm watching it on television, I think on BBC, and I see that mob run across the Capitol Plaza to the Supreme Court and go up and start banging with none of the marshals stop. They go up and start banging on this huge, massive doors. And I said, that is like the French Revolution. If they could have gotten through those doors, they would have torn people apart. I mean, it was an absolute irrational mob. It looked like, France in 1792. So that was, I think, the trigger point of God. It was scary. Let me play. I want to do something. We're kicking off Black History Month with, I think, to me, one of the most esteemed African Americans who's under relentless attack. Let's play the clip from the film. Go back to Mark.
Sure.
Judge Thomas, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated.
When I was 6, I wandered the streets by myself. You were hungry and didn't know when you'd eat. Someplace in my life, the road split off. I had gone to the seminary. I had gone to all-white schools. I was never going to be a part of that world. I was never going to be white. The problem is I could never go back completely to the world I came from. We're supposed to be revolutionaries. We were for anybody who was kind of in your face. I saw what I had become, lashing out at every single thing. cried and I asked God that if you take anger out of my heart, I'll never hate again. And that was the beginning of the slow return to where I started.
I want my candidacy to unify our country.
I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do.
That I will nominate Judge Clarence Thomas to serve as Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court.
That's when all heck broke loose.
Judge Thomas began to use work situations to discuss sex.
We know exactly what's going on here. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed. You really didn't matter. What mattered was what they wanted.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process. I wanted to be able to say I lived up to my oath and did my best.
One of our greatest living patriots, Justice Clarence Thomas. Mark, tell people about, you have a very strong personal relationship. Of course, the filmmaker is a partner of mine, worked with him for years. I think the finest documentary filmmaker in the country, Michael Pack. He's also, guys, remember The Last 600 Meters, many other films.
Yeah.
We did Rick Over together. He's just an incredible. This movie actually will bring you to tears. It's so powerful. Tell me about your relationship with him and Justice Thomas.
I met Justice Thomas back in 1983, and then reconnected with him in the White House when I was the first person to reach out to him for the D.C. circuit. Worked on his confirmation, became incredibly close to him during that hell zone of going through that confirmation. And we've been lifelong friends since then. When I got cancer, he came and visited me every day. This is the last year of the White House of Bush 41 in 92. A great man, a dear friend, our greatest American, living American, and our greatest justice. And so, during Black History Month, we should celebrate Justice Thomas as I said, as our greatest living American. He's got this incredible story, American story of being born into segregation. As you saw, it's a beautiful film. I was very involved with the making of that film. I could watch it many, many times, and I urge your viewers to watch that film, stream it. It's 2 hours of, you will, as you said, you'll be moved to tears, you'll be inspired by him. And there's a companion book. That movie was based on 25 hours of one-on-one interviews that Michael Pack, our good friend and a terrific, the best, I think, documentary filmmaker, had with Justice Thomas, 25 hours. And you can only get so much in a 2-hour film. So the book, which I co-edited with Michael, called of the same name, Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words, is the excerpts from those 25 hours, so covering a lot more of his life and his views on things. It's an inspiring book because it's Justice Thomas talking about his challenges, how he overcame them, his love of America, his love of individual rights, and as you know, Steve, he's a wonderful man, and our greatest justice, and he should be celebrated during Black History Month. And yet the left will attack him and defame him. And he's been, this has been going on for 40 years. But he's, one of the things that we talk about in terms of picking justices, right, is when Justice Thomas was selected by President Bush, what he saw was a man who had been through the fire, right? He had been attacked for 10 years in Washington before he went on the bench because the liberal black leadership and the left, egged on by the liberal black leadership, attacked him and smeared him in the worst kind of ways. And you know what? He didn't bend. He didn't break. He stood his ground. And that's a hero. All right. That's a leader. That's a warrior, and a patriot. And that's why I think he is our greatest justice, because he's a leader on the court. All of these decisions we were just talking about, from, Dobbs to the Harvard UNC case to the Bruin case on Second Amendment, the taking on the administrative state. We're talking about Chevron deference, but all of those things in terms of the out of control administrative state. Justice Thomas has led the way on the court. But when he went on there in 1991, they mocked him, they made fun of him, they said all sorts of horrible things, which are in the movie, right? And what did Thomas do? He just got to work for 30 years, okay? And he's laid out a jurisprudence that is now the roadmap for this originalist court. And one of the things I remember when we did the Gorsuch confirmation and selection was that Neil when he was at the Department of Justice, had written an email to his friend Greg Katsas, who's now on the D.C. Circuit, praising Justice Thomas's opinion in Kelo, right, which was the property rights case up in Connecticut, where the government and corporations took these people's homes, right, to build a plant and enrich themselves. People went to jail for that, okay? And Thomas said, this is wrong. This is against the Constitution. And he's been proved right. But it was Neil Gorsuch looking at Justice Thomas's opinion and writing an email to his friend, which he never thought would see the light of day, saying, Thomas is the man, basically. What an amazing opinion. That, to me, spoke a lot when we were looking at Neil Gorsuch in terms of, how he thought about things. It's, as I said, it's the first day of Black History Month. I'm really happy you've had me on your show, and I encourage all of your viewers to watch that movie, read the book, and then also read Justice Thomas's own memoirs, which are called My Grandfather's Son, which came out in 2008, but is a beautiful, riveting memoir of his life.
Just incredible man, incredible patriot. Mark, thinking back with Greg Katsas, yourself and others, Don McGahn, President Trump was very fortunate. That was a quite powerful White House counsel's office with tremendous talent, and with all the whole administrative state and deep state come in the media every day. It was like Fort Apache, but you guys were magnificent, and people don't know the untold story of that group that you guys had, but it was just incredible. Mark, how to get to social media, how to get to you over CRA?
Sure. At Mark Paoletta on X, and markpaoletta.com is my website. And I'll throw one more thing out. The Thomas Revolution is going to continue because, thanks to Don McGahn and that team, they picked, I think, 15 Thomas clerks that are now on the courts, many on the courts of appeal, like Greg Katsas, that are going to carry his legacy and his approach into the future.
Say that again. That's untold. I think it's the first time that stat's ever been used. This shows you how you build, and this is what's got the left who thinks they own the courts. The reason they hate Thomas, they hate Trump, right? They hate what you guys did because he's put originalist, and I mean the smartest people. You meet these people; they're so brilliant. How many Thomas clerks are federal judges, including on the appellate court?
15 Thomas former clerks. Some of them, I think 2 or 3 of them on a state court, but they're on the courts of appeals, right? You have Naomi Rao on the D.C. Circuit, Greg Katsas, you have Jim Ho. You just have Allison Jones on the 4th Circuit. These are committed originalists, okay? David Strauss on the 8th Circuit. And you see David pop up from time to time with opinions that drive the left crazy. And so there was one lefty writer who said that Thomas wrote these opinions in dissent that taught the young lawyers in law school, right, how to dream, how to think big. That's his impact. And like I said, there are people on the court that are going to go. Some of them are going to be up for the Supreme Court, next time around. So Thomas's revolution and his lasting legacy will be that he inspired and showed the way for a young group of lawyers. And as I said, all praise to President Trump for making those appointments and Don McGahn's team of sifting through and finding the right people. But I think Don's default was, we're looking for Thomas clerks because that was the place to go to find those committed originalists.
So proud to be a small part of that because I'm not a lawyer, but I learned so much. Brother, thank you so much. Mark, great job. Great over at CRA. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve.
Honored
Thanks
to
for
have
having
you
me
on here. Talk about trial by fire. Those guys in that White House, that was trial by fire. And that's why Mark just laid out why we must win in November. Don't think this fight over the courts is over. Somebody can tell you that is Brandon Showalter. I mean, Brandon at the Christian Post is really, I think, the intellectual leader. He and Dr. Marion Grossman, I would say, and a couple others, but really the intellectual core of public intellectuals about this horrific thing of the transgender ideology. I have you on here. We've had a bunch of people on different cases. Where do we stand? And you're thinking strategically. California is the railhead of this. Walk me through where do you think we stand today, and why is California so important, and what do we have to do to turn things around here?
Well, those are awfully kind words, Steve, and I thank you for that. Where we stand is that throughout the U.S., South and Midwest, with Ohio, that's the 23rd state to have passed some kind of a ban on the medicalization of children. Gender ideology infects every realm of culture, but I think the most egregious harm is the chemical castration, sterilization, and surgical disfigurement of minor children and vulnerable adults, I would say. Just today, South Carolina, that could be the 24th state if they go through. That would make a clean sweep of the South. But I will say, as you just said, Steve, that the Lodestar, the Death Star, California is where I think the fight must be. Because blue state kids matter too. I've got a column today on the Christian Post talking about why I believe that is. And the polling indicates out in California, they were surveyed by Spry Strategies in November, that 63% of California voters do not agree with medicalizing children with puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and body-altering surgeries. 68% of California voters say that they don't think parents should lose their custody for not affirming their child's chosen gender identity. Parents are outraged in California across the spectrum, Republicans and Democrats alike, and so they've risen up to try and bypass what the legislature is not paying them any mind. So they're trying to put an initiative on the ballot this fall. And so if that is successful, and they have until April 18th to gather the requisite 550,000 signatures or so, California voters have a chance to reject males in women's sports, teachers deceiving parents about their child's gender distress behind their backs, and also the medicalization of minor children with these horrible drugs and surgeries. So if that goes down in California, Steve, if gender ideology is dealt a body blow in the Golden State, it will be the equivalent, to use a biblical analogy, of hitting Goliath in the forehead and that giant falling. And then we know the rest of the story. His head is sliced off and the Philistines' wealth is plundered. But if it goes down in California, it goes down. And the fight must be in the belly of the beast. And we owe it to blue state kids and families to contest this ideology wherever it lurks. We can't just resist this kind of horrible dogma in the red states with sympathetic legislatures.
Brandon, where do people go to get all your content, including your podcast? But you've got a film out that's very moving. I need people. Look, everybody knows this is not my line of country. This is probably, of all the topics we talk about, by far the least one I'm comfortable with. But I also think it's probably one of the most important, if not the most important, because it goes to the heart of a Judeo-Christian civilization and what is happening here. And the stories are so horrific. I mean, in seeing your documentary, there were so many times I had to just turn away. I can't handle it. It's that tough. At least it's that tough for me. I know it is for many people. But where do people go to get the information? We have to immerse ourselves in this, and you're right. Yes. We have to march on California. We have to take down, because people in California don't support this. And here's something else I know. The more you expose us about what's actually going on, the more people come to your side and say, we can't do this. This is the United States. We can't do this.
Now, Republicans and Democrats alike don't want to see children sterilized and maimed. If the War Room posse is interested in what's going on in California, I would point them to protectkidsca.com. And there's parent activists who are working bipartisan, cross-partisan. It is totally a parents' movement. It's not left or right. That's where you can find more information there. I can be found on X at Brandon M. Show. I would also urge everyone to take a listen to our documentary-style podcast series at the Christian Post called Generation Indoctrination. That's at generationindoctrination.com. And if you want to hear about the families that have been torn apart by this, Dead Name, it's a very poignant documentary. As you said, Steve, you probably have to look away because it's so much of a gut punch. And that can be found at deadnamedocumentary.com. Very much urge everyone to see it. It'll move your heart.
You have to immerse yourself in this to understand what's going on in the country. It will shock you. All of this is shocking. Brandon, Thank you so much. Thanks for fighting this fight and being on here.
Thank you.
Thank you, bro. Okay, there's a method to my madness today. We're going to get into the second part of this. Rob Reiner's made a new film about Christian nationalism, which is like the new biggest domestic terrorism aspect. I want to bring in Liz Yore now. Liz, so I've had Mark Paoletta talk about Justice Thomas, one of the most devout Christians in public service. Of course, Brandon Showalter, the Christian Post, walking through about this radical transgender ideology. And then Liz Yore, our hammer over in the traditional side of the Catholic Church. Ma'am, talk to me. We've been to NGOs and all this stuff about the Catholic charities and Catholic charities taking money from the government to reinforce and exacerbate the invasion of our country. What is going on with the Catholic Church in this regard, ma'am?
Well, Catholic Charities is no longer state Catholic or charitable. It has become an arm of the government. It is become a cash cow. making hundreds of millions of dollars. And what I believe, and many Catholics who watch your show believe, is facilitating human trafficking and the drug cartels. We've got Catholic agencies, NGOs, Catholic Charities, Catholic Relief Services, Caritas International. They're on both sides of the border, facilitating in it with the UN, with the Soros organizations, with all the radical leftist organizations to bring people over the border. They're making millions. And you know, Catholic Charities was created to help the poor, and that was money from the people in the pew to help the poor. It was never envisioned until, I would argue, Barack Obama and Joe Bernardine as a sub-agency of a federal government. And as a result of that, I mean, you have a huge Catholic audience, as you know, and we have been working tirelessly to figure out a way now to have the Catholic, traditional, conservative Catholics who are war room, maniacs, love the show and follow it daily, to find a platform so that we can not only speak truth to power, but also to coalesce in a way to make bishops accountable.
Why don't you hang on for a second? We're going to talk about that platform with traditional Catholics who, with our evangelical Christian partners, are going to change the direction of this nation. Rob Reiner fears that. All next in the War Room.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, one of the things we're doing here is making sure that you have alternatives to reach out to in case, for instance, on the credit card side, we've worked with the people at the debt relief to make sure that you can manage your credit card situations. Credit cards start to blow people up. Also, taxes. All of these IRS agents, don't believe for a second they're after millionaires. They're after you. And so Tax Network USA has come up with a plan. You've got to get in touch with them. The one thing, if you get a letter from the IRS that says, hey, call this number, do not call the number. What you need to do is first call Tax Network USA, because I believe you waive your rights if you make contact. So when you get the letter, call Tax Network USA, tnusa.com. If you do /Bannon, you'll get a discount on the advisory fee. Or you can go to 800-245-6000. Make sure you talk to the pros at Tax Network USA today, because those new IRS agents, they ain't there to go after the billionaires. The billionaire donors are the ones that put these demons in office. So they're not going to go after them. They're going to go after you. Okay, so if you've got a letter or anything, you got issues with your taxes, make sure you go to taxnetworkusa.com, tnusa.com/Bannon. Go check it out today. Liz Yore, you guys have worked on an alternative. You've got Catholic Relief, Catholic Charities. You have all these groups that are no longer really Catholic. They're progressive left, working with Soros. They're assisting the invasion of our country, working with the United Nations. You and your team of traditional Catholics have come up with an alternative. What is it, ma'am?
Okay, it's called a platform called complicitclergy.com, and it's a bunch of activist, traditional Catholics, faithful Catholics, who are starting to coalesce, building the Catholic voice against leftist bishops or the silent ones. And they're speaking out against clergy sex abuse, transparency in financing. And now our real concern, Steve, is what Catholic Charities has been doing on the border, facilitating human trafficking and the drug cartel. And we've made it very easy, because we know the Catholics in the war room are motivated to get involved. Go to CatholicClergy.com, where it says take action, click on that, and you can fill out an email protesting what's going on and telling the bishops and the Catholic Church to get out of the illegal border business, and it will go directly to your diocese and to your bishop. It's a way to start communicating. We're going to use it for bills. We want to see bills that in Congress that are taking away this funding for these NGOs. It's absolutely essential, because if the NGOs are pulled out of this business, it's going to make it extremely difficult for the government to continue to push millions over the border. Look, we were talking about this, Steve. Lest we forget, that it was 19 illegal alien terrorists brought this country to its knees in 2001. And we've yet to recover from that. Now we're talking about exponentially hundreds of thousands of Mohammed Attas, Chinese spies, hiding in this country. You know, I've read all the Inspector General reports on what's going on in the border. They're gone. Nobody knows where any of it, they're not being tracked. Nobody knows where they are. And with these NGOs like Catholic Charities, this has become a cottage industry, and it's a massive government slush fund. And with Catholic Charities becoming a cash cow for the government, we are going to have to insist.
Hold it. When you say hang on. When you say Catholic Charities, this will be sure. You just made a comment that you believe they're complicit in assisting with sex trafficking and the drug cartels. That's a pretty bold claim, Liz Yore, because this is people at parishes in the second collection that are giving their money to this, along with obviously the government. They've got it set up through Obama that they're on the government payroll now, taking billions of dollars a year. But it's also people in the second collection. You know, they put the envelope around. They say, hey, it's, 1 week it's Peter's Pence, the next week it's Catholic Charities. How do you make such a bold statement? They're involved in sex trafficking and assisting the cartels in drug trafficking.
Well, I'm sure you remember in the Trump administration, when the Trump administration wisely decided to do DNA testing and separated children from their parents to do that testing, they found that 1/3 of the children did not belong to the people who were bringing them across the border. So you can't tell me as somebody who is providing documents, providing money, providing cards, examining as these people are coming across the border. These, are people, this is a massive, they say 100,000 children, unaccompanied minor children are missing. They're not even looking for these children. Catholic Charities is busing them and dumping them. It's as many have said, it's an uber illegal operation. And so my concern is all these, people that they've quickly hired, they know darn well what's happening and what's going on. And hang on, give that stat one more time from because Biden specifically put out an executive order. You cannot check for DNA. Tell people what we found out in the Trump administration. The day he came into office, he stopped that. And they found that 1/3 of the children did not belong to the adults who were bringing them across the border. Steve, this is an app. You read these OIG reports. It is a total nightmare. This is a fire that is going to lit this country just in an explosion. Furthermore, what is going to be happening, it is this permanent poor class of people, children from 157 countries. We don't have teachers from, teaching languages from, 157 countries. We don't even know where these children are. We're dumping them with people that the administration, the Biden administration, as somebody who's been in child welfare, this is just mind-boggling to me. The Biden administration is dumping unaccompanied minor children with sponsors that have not had backgrounds, have not had any criminal checks. They haven't even examined the homes these children are being left at. They never call these children back. They never check to see if they're in their homes, who these people are. It is, to me, there's just no coming back from this unless these people are deported under the next Trump administration. So, those of us who are Catholics who, in the old days loved Catholic Charities, and Catholic Charities did the true work of helping poor people, right? It was from the hard work of, the people in the pews who gave to Catholic Charities. That doesn't happen anymore. What happens now is they're getting a handout from the Biden administration in carrying out their just illegal, evil, malevolent policies that are just going to be a disaster for the country. And if you if you read this letter from the ex-FBI supervisors who wrote Congress saying, they said it would be difficult to overstate the danger represented by the presence inside of our borders of a multi-division army of young single males from hostile nations. I mean, this is, you read that letter, and I've told you I've worked with two of those agents on high-profile cases. They're the finest men, the finest patriots, and they are extremely, they're waving the red flag. It's flashing red in the country, and the only way that we can do something is to cut off the funding to these NGOs. I'm just pleading with Catholics out there to go to our website, complicitclergy.com, track, go to your bishop.
Okay.
We're making it as easy as possible. Drop down menu.
Hang on a second. Okay, slow down. Hang on. Because first you said Catholic clergy. I just want to make sure we get the right website. It's complicit clergy.
Complicit clergy.
Liz Yore. Liz Yore actually got so worked up, she gave the wrong website. So it's complicit clergy, all one word.
It's such a disaster, Steve. I mean, it's just, Anyway.
Liz, I'm gonna play this Rob Reiner say. I just want to hit one more point. You've spent your professional career. You spent your professional career combating child trafficking, sex trafficking, and particularly the damage that it does. Do you believe that a significant part of what we're seeing at the southern border is directly tied to sex trafficking overall, and particularly the aspect of child sex trafficking?
Absolutely. We already know that from Tara Rodas, the whistleblower. And that's only one whistleblower. Absolutely. They've been coming over the border in droves. There is a demand. The United States has the biggest demand for sex trafficking victims in the world. And this is cheap. Victims are just lining up across, and they're dumping them with predators. And there's no safety net. There's no protection. This is a huge business for the cartels. It's much more lucrative than the drug cartel, much more, because these victims are sold over and over again. We have, we thought human trafficking and sex trafficking was a problem before. And Donald Trump did more than anybody else to stem and to prosecute these cases. After 3 years of Joe Biden, it's Katie by the door. It's just a nightmare. So it's big business, and they're pouring over the borders. And we know it. We've seen it. And look at the OIG report. It talks about it.
I tell you, we know what some of the clear and present dangers are to this nation. Of course, Rob Reiner, a filmmaker, believes that the clear and present danger is Christian nationalism. Let's play some cuts from his this interview he did. And Liz, I'll stop it partway through, and you and I can make some commentary. Let's go ahead and play it.
You to do God and Country about Christian nationalism as a documentary, because obviously you're really, really, really well known for your fantastic films.
Well, I've kind of known about this movement for quite a while. I mean, back in the late 70s, early 80s, Norman Lear launched an organization called People for the American Way, which focused on this idea that the Christian right was going to dictate what we should listen to, what we should not listen to. And it was very disturbing to him. And as time went by, I saw this movement grow, but I didn't realize how powerful it was and how well organized and well funded it was until I read this book called The Power Worshippers by Catherine Stewart. And I then realized that this has taken root far more deeply than I had ever thought.
So you mentioned Norman Lear. Just for our international audience, just want to point out he was the great TV pioneer, creator of all sorts of things, including All in the Family. And he recently died at the grand old age of 101. That was your breakthrough series, that television series. But back to this, because we'll talk about him in a little bit. You know, we've all known about the power of America's, right-wing fringe, its Christian evangelicals, how they helped propel Trump, of all people, into the White House. But I think for me, what was so new about what you did was the notion of nationalism, and particularly how that really was on display at the insurrection at the Capitol. I'd never focused on all those imageries that you show and you focus on, all those people waving crosses and speaking Bible verses and the like.
Yes, well, the interesting thing is that they go into the guise of a religious movement, but it really isn't. It's a political movement. It's all about gaining power. It's all about forcing your way of thinking on others. And you're right. I mean, most people didn't focus on the fact that there was this Christian nationalist undercurrent to the insurrection on January 6th. But if you look closely, not only are there the images that you point out, but there was an organizing tool. They organized the buses that got there. We're not saying that every person who stormed the Capitol was a Christian nationalist, but it was the foundation for the movement on January 6th.
So let me ask you, what then is the proportion or the distinction between American Christians and American Christian nationalists? Do they work together? Do they work in opposition to each other?
Well, that's a great question, because when you see the documentary, you'll realize that we're not bashing Christianity at all. It's the exact opposite. As a matter of fact, we have some of the most conservative Christian thinkers, theologians, people who are devout to their faith, talking about the danger of Christian nationalism, not just to democracy, but to Christianity itself. And unfortunately, you have a lot of well-meaning Christians who do practice their faith and are devout in what they believe, getting swept up in this Christian nationalist movement, which is essentially, as I pointed out before, a political movement, not a religious movement.
Yeah, and frankly, if I could paraphrase that, it's about power, not religion. And one of your experts in the film says if democracy gets in the way of...
That is Rob Reiner, a well-known Hollywood progressive. He's the one person you want lecturing you on Christianity and Christian nationalism. Liz, Yore, traditional Catholics, evangelical Christians, the more devout you are, the more suspect you are as a hater of democracy and, quite frankly, a domestic terrorist. Your thoughts, ma'am?
Steve, I'm glad he brought out Norman Lear, because Norman Lear, at the end of his life, converted to Catholicism. His daughter converted to Catholicism when she was at Harvard, and I think at the ripe old age of 100, he did too. So I'm sure his feelings about Christianity and Catholicism changed as he got older and wiser. Look, this is all about Hollywood has lost its power. It began to lose its power, I believe, when Mel Gibson had that blockbuster, magnificent film, The Passion of Christ. And ever since then, Catholics, Christians, and we all, we don't separate the fact that we are our religion from the country we love and live in. As Catholics and Christians, we're taught to love God, family, and country. So there's no separation of that. And, Hollywood's been losing its power. And they understand that the Catholic Christians, Catholic nationalists, Christian nationalists, people who love their country, understand that Hollywood does not love this country. And the junk and smut that it's been producing over the years has turned off their audience. They can't fill seats in the movie theaters. And so they're kind of left to demonize us. That's all they have to do. And I might add that it's interesting. It's not that we hate movies because we saw what a blockbuster Sound of Freedom was. We see that those Christians, Catholics in Hollywood have quite a following, although Hollywood wants to censor them. We as Catholics want to support those Catholics that speak the truth and are great creators of art in content. So, he's been banging this drum forever. It's, he's very much, the old man. Hollywood is dead, thank God. What is going to replace it is going to be true and beautiful and creative. And we're going to have stories in the future, real stories, not reruns. And so, hopefully Rob Reiner will follow in his, in the lead of Norman Lear. And at the end of his life,
Listen, I knew you were going to do that.
I know.
You're so good.
Miracles.
You're so good.
But he
Liz,
brought
you're
up
so
Norman
good.
Lear.
My mentor.
And oh yeah. I think this is just Disney's gone, and we're walking with our feet and speaking with our feet. We don't go to movies that have people.
No, and Mel's getting. By the way, Mother Cabrini's coming out. There's all kind of great films coming out here in the near future.
Yes.
Liz, we got to bounce, but complicitclergy.com. Is that where people go? Complicitclergy.com?
Yes. And you'll hear more about it from us. And we're going to be doing a lot of exciting things and really moving the needle to protect children and make the Catholic hierarchy accountable.
One of my mentors, Liz Yore, as I say, she's tough as boot leather with a heart of gold. Liz, thank you so much. Always honored to have you on here, man.
Thank you.
Complicit clergy. We're going to get into more on this every day because the bill's coming up. We got to have people say, well, you guys are just so negative. No. You've got to stop the bad and you have to promote the good. And that's what we do here. Birchgold.com, the end of the dollar empire. Obviously, geopolitics, economics starting to overwhelm just traditional politics. It's quite important for you, a working class and middle class audience, to understand all of this. We try to make it as easy as possible. It's totally free. Does not cost you anything. Just go to birchgold.com/Bannon right now. You get all 4 installments, including the new third. I've redone the third installment of the debt trap to get current numbers up there. You'll see and you'll understand everything that's going on, these massive fights we have over the next couple of weeks, just absolutely massive fights. So go to birchgold.com/Bannon. Maybe you talk to Philip Patrick and the team. Okay, Lou Dobbs follows us here at 7 o'clock. We're back at 10 tomorrow. It's going to be jam-packed. We're also going to do, with the Real America's Voice, a special on Saturday. Ben Berquam and the Real America Voice team. We're going to go to East Palestine. We'll have people in East Palestine, Ohio. We'll spend the whole 2 hours, of course, breaking news, talking about these bills, all the huge firefight. MyPatriotSupply.com. Why don't you also check that out? If Seb got you rattled earlier in the show, go to My Patriot Supply right now. Check out about all the preparation material. Lou Dobbs next. We're back here at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. See you then when you'll be in the War Room.